And welcome to King 5. I'm Greg Copeland. This is The Week. A look at what made headlines in our region along with your weekend forecast. First up, the agency in charge of King County's homelessness crisis is now under intense scrutiny. New audit found $13 million unaccounted for, and that now has elected leaders demanding answers. King 5's Natalie Swaby breaks down the audit and what this could mean for the region's response to the crisis.
Leaders in Seattle and King County are calling the Regional Homelessness Authority a failed experiment, and tonight they're pushing to shut it down. Mud and debris are part of a struggle in West Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, we try to just get our boots on the ground and out.
So this is probably the end of our ride here.
Volunteers power this cleanup.
So this is your typical leftover encampment.
There was just a lot of people living in the woods that it's just unfortunate.
King County has been fighting this battle for years, working to help the unhoused. But now there's a new obstacle. 13 million public dollars have gone missing. It's money the Regional Homelessness Authority cannot account for.
The state of the record keeping is apparently so bad that while they didn't find fraud, they couldn't assure us that there wasn't any fraud.
And unfortunately, we all know that the King County Regional Homelessness Authority has had problems, real problems, for years.
Since its 2019 founding, the agency has had trouble with unpaid contractors, revolving door leadership, and a trail of mismanaged funds.
Why has it taken this long after all these systemic failures to come up here and say, let's pull the plug now?
Well, there was that thing called the pandemic that slowed their start, so it was formed. It took them a while to stand up the operation.
But a brand new audit covering mid-2021 through last year shows the same pattern of problems.
Cats get 9 lives. This organization has had 10, one more than it should have. It's time for it to go.
That lands hard in a place like this.
We would love to see folks getting care and eventually housing.
That hope is real, even as King County faces new hurdles. The agency's CEO released a statement saying that the audit did not identify evidence of fraud or misuse of funds. Instead, the CEO says it highlights the need to upgrade financial systems and reporting practices. In Seattle, Natalie Swaby, King 5 News.
Well, they're washing ashore emaciated and starving to death after a migration from Mexico. Experts say gray whale deaths along the Washington coast have gone from worrisome to alarming. King 5's Drew Mickelson went to ocean shores to speak with scientists who say this could be the beginning of a very bad trend.
Last year, a record number, 18 gray whales washed up on Washington beaches. This is the 13th so far in 2026. They're way ahead of last year's pace, something scientists call alarming.
It's just majestic, really.
Braving the smell was worth it for Zach Rose.
I've always wanted to see something like this up close without, wishing harm on anything.
And his fiance, Mariah Scroggins.
I feel lucky to have been able to observe without stressing it out in life, but it breaks my heart so much to have been able to immediately recognize there's something wrong with it.
After an examination, biologists determined this almost 40-foot-long emaciated gray whale died of starvation. He's the 5th to wash up at ocean shores since March. This gray whale appeared about 5 miles south on Friday.
It is heartbreaking. It's, I used to say in recent years, these deaths are worrisome, but they're not yet alarming. Well, now they are alarming. They've clearly got our attention.
John Clallam-Bokidis from the Cascadia Research Collective expects to break last year's record for deceased whales found on the coast and in Puget Sound. Boaters discovered this one in Deception Pass Saturday. There have been 13 dead gray whales found up and down the Washington coast and at least 2 more in Oregon since March. Biologists say climate change has limited the whales' food in Alaska and the Arctic Circle.
This reflects that they did not get enough to feed last year, because these whales typically fast when they migrate down to their breeding grounds in Mexico that they're on their way back from. And so this is the period that kind of is most stressful, if you will. If they didn't get enough of a reserve, that's when they're not making it.
It's unfortunate it's happening, but we need to pay attention to the impact that we're having on the world around us.
For this couple, a vivid illustration of a problem.
We've been being told for a long time about the impact that we've been having, and so many people have been ignoring it. And I feel like it's just going to get pushed to a point where nature won't let us ignore it anymore. It seems like that might be what's happening.
If you make a discovery like this on the coast, do not touch the whale, but do contact authorities. Those biologists will want to know about it. On the Washington coast for Environment Northwest, I'm Drew Mickelson.
Well, the man accused of killing a father outside a Linwood bar has pleaded not guilty. The victim's parents faced him in court as they urged a judge to keep him behind bars. King 5 Sebastian Robertson was in the courtroom.
His prior criminal history.
The parents of 38-year-old Makos O'Neill waited quietly in the courtroom as the man charged in their son's killing entered a plea.
Not guilty.
Investigators say the violence began as a verbal argument inside a Linwood bar on Friday, April 10th, before escalating outside where witnesses reported hearing gunshots minutes later.
We know that there was at least one gunshot, if not two. Some witnesses reported hearing 2 shots. He then proceeds to get in his Ford F-150 and speed out of the parking lot, fleeing the scene, does not render aid, does not call for help.
O'Neill was found with a gunshot wound, later died of his injuries. 44-year-old Joseph Raymond was arrested hours later.
I am here today to ask the court to deny bail and keep the defendant in custody. He is a menace to society.
My son was unarmed and he took his life for nothing. And I want justice served. That's all I want, Your Honor.
Raymond's defense signaling self-defense as the case heads to trial.
Mr. Raymond did leave the pub, but then he called the police, told them where he was, stated he wanted to turn himself in. He also told the police that this was a self-defense case.
O'Neill's family describes him as a loving father who is deeply involved in his community and a dedicated youth soccer coach. Prosecutors confident the reality of this situation will be revealed.
What the facts show is that the defendant became more and more agitated as viewed on the surveillance video over the course of this evening. What is very clear is that the defendant shoots an unarmed man.
Well, a box of ballots found by a dumpster in Renton is now under federal investigation. New details are raising questions about how long those ballots were sitting there and how they got there in the first place. King 5 Sharon Yu explains.
This box of ballots found next to a Renton dumpster is now drawing federal attention. The U.S. Postal Inspection Service confirms to King 5 it is aware of the situation and investigating. Meanwhile, at the Washington GOP headquarters, they're running their own investigation.
Take a record of the individual voters to whom these ballots were supposed to go, and we'll look and see if they managed to vote in the elections.
Majority of the ballots have addresses tied to this private mailbox business where people can rent a P.O. box. The owner of the business says they took over as new owners in January, and it's the first time they're hearing about the ballots. Walsh says the ballots were found back in February by a man who tried contacting state and local agencies.
And got the runaround from King County elections. And then he said he tried contacting the state Secretary of State, which would make sense.
The Secretary of State's office said in a statement last week they did not receive any reports prior to seeing Walsh's video. Walsh says the ballots themselves aren't evidence of fraud, but rather proof the system would benefit from a tracking system.
That is a risk. A bad actor could get involved, could intercept these ballots and do something illegal with them. And we want to minimize that risk.
Jeremy, can I ask you why you opened some of them? Because that's also...
Well, we didn't really open some of them. Some of them were already opened. They were jostled. They were, the seal had come undone. They had been torn a little bit. And we looked at those to make sure these were in fact ballots and weren't, say, empty envelopes or something.
So you didn't open any specifically?
We didn't unseal anything that was sealed, correct.
When we come back, a potentially sinister underbelly to an important part of Seattle's food culture. But first, meteorologist Adam Claybon has a look at your sunny forecast right after this.
All right, everyone, here we go into the weekend, last weekend of April 2026, and it's looking to be very spring-like, a lot of sunshine, but also we'll see some changes as we head over the next couple of days for Saturday and Sunday. which will include a bit of a cool down early into next work week. But first, let's go ahead and talk about what's on tap for us heading into Saturday and Sunday for the weekend. You can see a lot of clear skies across this part of the country. The Pacific Northwest is looking beautiful, and we should stay pretty much this way here for definitely Saturday. For Sunday, we might see some changes on the way, but clear skies all across this part of the country right here. You can see that very, very nicely. Now, what we're going to keep an eye on for will be this system right here across parts of Saskatchewan, Manitoba. Will be coming back off to the west a little more. We'll start to see some of that, and you can kind of see it looking at radar how we do have not only just rain connected with this, but mostly in Canada, it's a lot of snow that's falling across some of those parts, extending over into Alberta and helping to reduce some of that snow closer to Edmonton, around Calgary, and then even heading up into more of the Canadian Rockies. So some of that moisture will be heading closer to us, but don't really expect anything like that. What we're going to notice is for tomorrow, things staying quiet. What we expect to see is a lot more of the clear skies by the afternoon on Saturday and some of that fog around during the morning hours. Now, we will start to warm up quite nicely over the next 2 days for Saturday and Sunday, seeing highs well into the 60s, maybe even approaching 70 by the time we head on into Sunday. And we do expect to see a few of those showers, possibly more spotty in nature, late Sunday, a little more widespread, and coming with a cool down heading on into Monday. Now, here's a look at that. You can see 7-day forecast showing that temperatures climb all the way up into the upper 60s on Sunday, fall into the upper 50s by Monday. There are going to be some showers around, and most of those will be near and south of Seattle. And then we'll start to warm up again as we go later on into next week. Radar, again, very quiet here across this part of the country, and what we really expect is really little of anything to happen here as we head on into the night and into more of Saturday, where you can see little in terms of activity here across the region. We do expect to see some sprinkles out towards the coast. That might provide and produce a little mist. There you go. You can kind of see things flare up a little bit, at least, as you get closer to areas around 2, 3, 4 o'clock, Kitsap Peninsula, parts of Hood Canal. Not going to last long. It's in, it's out of here. And again, that's going to be more of a spotty nature, and most spots will stay dry on Sunday. And then once we head on into Monday, you can see all of this beginning to return and come back, and that's helping to produce the cool down that we're going to see. Not much moisture really connected with it, but you can see the cloud coverage across parts of the I-5 corridor, then out this way towards parts of the coast and the lowland areas here across southwest interior. So that's what's going to really help with the cool down, and that's because of that area of low pressure that's spinning mostly over parts of Canada, trying to sneak a little farther to the west. Now, what you're really seeing is some of its influence bringing back a bit more of that troughiness or just active weather in general. And so some of that green finds its way back closer to the region here across the state, helps to produce a bit more of that cloud cover as well as a few light showers. Hangs with us throughout Sunday, and then Monday it starts to find its way back off to the north and to the east. And that ridge of high pressure, which is indicated by some of the oranges and even some of the deeper oranges, finds its way back into place for us as we head on into next Wednesday, Thursday, and heading into Friday. So high temperatures typically should be in the lower 60s. We'll be above those numbers here for Saturday all the way through next Friday, except on Monday and Tuesday. Now, looking at Futurecast, you'll see, again, how that moisture does get a bit closer as we head on into more of your day on Sunday, and then a little more of a flare-up heading on into Monday. There it goes. You can see that pushing on through, and then things really dying off as we head on into more of the latter part of the day Tuesday, and then Wednesday and Thursday definitely clearing out just a bit more with a lot more of that moisture off to the east. Lows heading into early Saturday morning, going to be chilly. Shelton, Olympia, and Chehalis all dropping down into the mid-30s there. Otherwise, upper 30s and lower 40s. And then highs for Saturday, up around 65 in Bellingham, 66 in Mount Vernon, 67 around Arlington. We'll top off at about 66 in Seattle, 65 in Bainbridge Island, 67 in Tacoma, and about 68 in Puyallup. So most spots staying shy of the 70-degree mark. We'll try to get up there again heading into Sunday. If not then it looks like we'll have to wait until next Wednesday, Thursday, and heading into next Friday before we get back up closer to some of those same marks. All right, everyone, it looks like a beautiful weekend. Try to get out and enjoy it as much as possible, and get ready for the cool down as we start off next work week. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, welcome back to the week. A ramp worker at SeaTac Airport is suing the Port of Seattle and 3 other companies after he says a baggage trailer hit him and left him with long-term injuries. Newly obtained video shows the moments before, during, and after impact. King 5's Alex McClune has this exclusive report.
Video shows Marcus Creary, a worker for Delta Airlines, preparing a gate for an arriving plane in July of 2024. You can see him asking another operator to move a fuel truck. That's when a tug moves into the area, and you can see Creary walking back as he's talking. A baggage cart pulled by a tug suddenly strikes him in the leg. Creary, still standing, appears to motion to the driver to slow down, bends over, looking down at his legs, then proceeds to walk away.
There was a bunch of traffic coming in through, and there was clutter at the gate, and we needed to clear that up for a safe environment. Next thing you know is I get this large force hitting me in my leg.
A Port of Seattle incident report says Creary went home with some ice. Following the incident, the port advised both Creary and the other worker to check their surroundings in the future. In a new lawsuit filed in King County, the plaintiff says he suffered severe, permanent, and disabling personal injuries, including but not limited to nerve pain and complex regional pain syndrome, and that Creary will in the future suffer a loss of wages and/or earnings capacity in amounts to be proven at trial. The Port of Seattle says it shouldn't be held responsible as it does not own or operate baggage tugs or ramp equipment. The port does own and operate the airport and leases space to airlines. The port issued a statement saying safety is the #1 priority at the airport and is a shared responsibility for the airlines and their contractors.
We're filing too many lawsuits.
King 5 has reported on other workers hit by baggage tugs on the job. Creary's attorney, Raymond Bishop, previously settled a $2 million case after a tug crash injured a worker in 2022. Bishop also reached an $11 million settlement for a ramp worker who lost part of her leg in another tug accident a year before.
These are all people 27 or younger. They've lost their legs completely, amputation. They've had their legs mangled, degloved, debrided.
In the latest case, the lawsuit says the Port of Seattle was ultimately in charge of how work gets done on the airfield, including enforcement of rules that prohibit blocked aircraft paths, improperly parked equipment, and unsafe driving on the ramp. The port says it couldn't have done anything differently, that the owner of the airport couldn't prevent a worker backing into a moving tug. Today, Creary continues to work for Delta Airlines. Doctors recommended a spinal cord stimulator, an implanted device that uses electrical pulses to help manage the constant nerve pain in his right leg.
If I was to go walk in the park, go play with my kids, take them to school, driving, I have to turn it off because it could be a distraction, but that's okay. But everyday life, I would have relief.
The Port of Seattle adds all personnel with ramp access undergo training to understand their personal responsibilities to ensure everyone goes home injury-free. The port says it's every individual's responsibility to report injuries or non-compliant operations of equipment immediately. Alex McClune, King 5 News.
Well, the city of Seattle has been ordered to remove part of the historic structures at Gasworks Park. This stems from a lawsuit filed after a teen's death there last year. Not everybody, though, is happy with the demolition plan. King 5's Bridget Chavez has more.
At Gasworks Park, these towers stand tall.
They're kind of iconic.
As one of Seattle's most significant landmarks.
I mean, it's kind of part of the whole mood down here.
But for decades, these same structures have been linked to dangerous and deadly falls.
People who want to get on top of these things always will.
In July 2025, 15-year-old Matthias Johnson died after falling from these towers. His family filed a nuisance lawsuit against the city.
You have an attractive nuisance, this structure that is decrepit and falling apart.
Their attorney says the city knew about the dangers. The lawsuit points out 3 people have died and at least 11 others have been seriously injured since 2008. The city is now taking action. On April 14th, the Seattle Department of Construction and Inspections issued this permit for partial demolition of structures on the towers.
The city plans to remove the stairwells, the catwalks, and the ladders, all of the things that make this structure climbable, so that it ends up looking like this one over here. You can't climb up that.
Those have never caught my eye.
The city says a structural engineer found those features are not structurally sound and recommended they be removed.
Unless they do a whole lot of cutting on those things, they're going to stop people from climbing on them.
Some are pushing back on the demolition plan. The group Historic Seattle said in part, these appurtenances do not in and of themselves pose a hazard or imminent threat. Trespassing is an illegal act. The city seems more motivated to make a lawsuit go away than to be a good steward of its landmarks. The city has issued a hazard correction order requiring Seattle Parks to fix the problem by May 15th or face a $500 a day fine for each day it's not in compliance.
I think it'd lose a lot of character.
That deadline is just weeks before the city is scheduled to be in court over this lawsuit.
The city is now trying to hurry up.
In Seattle,
and
Bridget Chavez,
try to get this work done before the hearing so it doesn't have egg on its face.
King 5 News.
Well, airfares continue to climb with no relief in sight. Seattle-based Alaska Airlines reported a $193 million quarterly loss as the war with Iran drives jet fuel costs higher. It's not just Alaska. Pressure is also building across the airline industry. King 5 Sebastian Robertson tells us how travelers are reacting to those rising prices.
Finding the perfect flight at the perfect price isn't as easy as it used to be.
Since the prices are fluctuating so much, our price and our round trip costed like $600, which is kind of crazy because that's a time difference of like maybe 24 hours.
Seattle-based Alaska Airlines on an earnings call this morning reported a $193 million quarterly loss, driven largely by rising fuel costs. At some point during the fighting in Iran, oil prices jumped to more than $100 a barrel. It's come down some, but the closure of the Strait of Hormuz has kept prices high.
That's the largest expense of the airline industry is jet fuel. And if you don't react rapidly, you're going to end up sinking not only your expectations for profit, but also putting yourself in a corner vis-a-vis the other airlines.
Even with ticket prices rising, airlines say the demand remains strong, with planes still full, as more of those higher fuel costs get passed on to customers through baggage fees and higher fares.
But I think the thing is, we're looking at a situation now that is so chaotic and so unfocused, and quite frankly, in my view, so unnecessary, that we don't know where the prices are going to go, not only per barrel of oil, but in terms of the overall cost of a gallon of jet fuel.
This isn't just Alaska. Major carriers like Delta, United, American are all reporting similar cost pressures. Some travelers say at a certain point they just won't fly.
If there's a need, you got to go. But right now, we choose not to go probably too far, too much.
So now it kind of feels like I have to hunt for a good ticket, opposed to just being able to purchase a ticket that's a reasonably priced ticket.
Leaving others to make tough trade-offs.
As a student, I not only just work and just also go to school full time. It's hard to, keep myself in a budget and try to fit in all those stereotype American dream stuff when everything is getting so expensive and I can't even afford sometimes to if I get groceries, I probably won't afford rent,
Well, King County officials say a dramatic surge in unpermitted hot dog vendors is being driven by organized multi-state networks exploiting outdated laws and possibly their own workers. King 5's Maddie White with the story.
Can I get a dog on for you, sir?
Yeah, can I beef, please?
Sure.
We all want to bring home the bacon.
Just cream cheese.
But for many permitted vendors,
got it.
This surge of unpermitted hot dog carts,
you wouldn't even recognize this vlog,
is spoiling their business.
Thank you guys.
And I see it.
Anytime.
I see the pinch.
You as well.
I feel the pinch.
Namoka Trice owns D's Dogs.
Here you go.
She and her sister Betty say they've lost 75% of sales since the surge began about a year ago.
Yeah, we might sell 300 to 400 hot dogs on a regular night 6 months ago. Now we're under 100 here.
Another licensed business owner at this hot dog stand by Lumen Field says he's down 50%.
They're vans with California plates that are coming up and unloading these carts.
Rashid Baramini of Pioneer Grill Hot Dogs says he's frustrated by the organizers.
Whoever it is that's bringing these people and making money off of it, illegally,
After an 8-month King 5 investigation, we discovered there's a dark side to many of these hot dog carts. County officials say there are out-of-state owners who are deliberately skirting licensing requirements and possibly exploiting their workers.
Have a pathway to get permitted.
Dr. Eob Mazengia is an official with Seattle-King County Public Health. Health inspectors in the field are the ones who saw the pattern. Big owners without local ties, skipping health, cleanliness, and safety measures, putting the health of Washingtonians at risk.
These are centrally organized operations that have owners orchestrating this body of work from somewhere else.
At a cart outside a Mariners game, I approached a vendor who wasn't displaying the mandatory health rating sign. When I asked who he works for, he said he didn't speak English. King County Council member Teresa Mosqueda has been looking into complaints about unlicensed vendors. She says she's finding evidence of the cart workers being victims, maybe even forced to do the job. She wants those responsible held accountable.
I think by making sure that anybody who is coercing labor is being held accountable, that actually does support the worker in the end, because we get them out of a unjust and illegal situation, frankly.
While discussions like these provide some hope to the licensed food stand owners,
We pay the taxes. We pay for the schools your children go to.
this owner says she feels the public has the power.
The money you're giving them pays nothing into your kids' schooling. It doesn't pay into your sidewalk. And you might be exploiting somebody. Thank you guys.
Well, an Uber Eats driver using GPS directions took a very wrong turn in Mason County. As King 5's Drew Mickelson shows us, that driver ended up relying on a real person for help.
It was late on Sunday night when Sam Cadle had just finished his dinner and had sat down to watch TV when he got a phone call from an Uber Eats driver who said he was stuck in the mud in the middle of the woods.
This will be, I think I'm going on my 10th year now.
Sam Cadle helps people for a living. He's a tow truck driver, and every day is a new adventure.
That's one of my favorite parts of this job is the challenge and having to work it out. It's like a giant puzzle.
Sunday night's challenge, find a driver stuck along a narrow road deep in this dense state-owned timberland just outside of Belfair.
He was just on the other side of this property.
Driving his truck in wasn't going to work.
You still see my footprints from the other night.
So Cadle hiked about a half mile across state property.
He was down in the bottom of that draw right there.
Cadle found the young man who says after making an Uber Eats delivery, he took a wrong turn and his GPS steered him to the unpassable road. The good news, the rescue mission was free.
I'm not charging somebody for something like that. That's my time. I mean, sure, I'm in my tow truck here that belongs to the company, but that's my time. I'm wandering out through the woods. I'm not getting paid for it. It's my time, and I chose to go help him.
The next morning, Cadle and another North Shore towing employee went out with an excavator to pull the car out of the mud.
I think the worst thing we did is I feel a little guilty about it, is we scratched this front bumper up a little bit, pulling it out of there. But all said and done, it's the lesser of all the evils.
Along with that scratch, that rescue driver also got a reminder. People can be more reliable than phones. In Mason County, Drew Mickelson, King 5 News.
And thank you for your time. We hope you enjoyed a look at the biggest stories of the week.